The effects of the Great Depression. The effects of the Great Depression caused many people to lose their homes and live in the streets. Many of them built makeshift shacks on the outskirts of the cities. These were known as shanty towns. Soup kitchens and bread lines began to spring up. These were places where people were given food by charitable organizations. The Depression had a much greater impact on African Americans than it did on other groups of Americans. Unemployment was much higher, and the racial violence rose as well, with 24 African Americans being lynched in 1933 alone. The effect on Latinos was also devastating. Many Mexican Americans returned to Mexico, some voluntarily, many were deported. In rural areas, the Depression hit hardest of all. Crop prices kept falling, farmers continued to lose land. Between 1929 and 1932, 400,000 farms were foreclosed upon. Many farmers scraped by tenant farming, where they rented land from large landowners. Throughout the early part of the 20th century, the grasslands of the Great Plains have been broken up by tractors. This land was not protected by trees or by any natural barriers. Therefore, when a period of drought came, the land began to dry up and barren due to overproduction. In the 1930s, drought and wind came to the plains and blew the soil away. This caused tremendous dust storms, which wreaked environmental havoc across the nation. Dust Bowl migrants who moved to California to find work were known as Okies. These people, for the most part, came from Oklahoma and tried to go to California to find work, but were often unable to do so. Many men accustomed to being unemployed lost hope and left their families. There were over 2 million men wandering the country riding the rails. As there was no system of direct relief or cash payments for food or rent provided by the government, these men often couldn't provide for their families and so left them. Women often had to work outside the home, oftentimes though they couldn't find jobs because there were so many men out of work. Children at the time struggled. They had poor diets and little health care. Many child welfare programs were cut. School boards shortened the school year, and more than 2,800 schools were closed. The Depression had tremendous social and psychological effects as well. Between 1928 and 1932, suicide rate rose by 30%. People stopped going to the doctor and the dentist, stopped going to college, put off marriage, and put off having children until better times.